Deborah, I need to speak with you privately. This isn't a typical allergy. I still vividly remember that day, the day the world beneath my feet seemed to collapse, all because of a small note quietly slipped into my hand. The hospital room was chillingly cold, the steady beeping of machines filled the air, and I, a mother who thought herself strong, trembled uncontrollably like a lost child. Stephanie, my 7-year-old daughter, lay on the hospital bed, her skin ghostly pale with splotchy red-purple rashes, her lips cracked and dry, her eyes vacant and adrift. For months, I had convinced myself that her sudden fainting spells, her unexplained seizures, were just food allergies or a frail constitution. I had believed, blindly believed, every explanation whispered into my ear each night by Brad, my husband, Stephanie's father. "It's probably just an allergy, honey. I've given her the medicine," Brad would always say, his tone gentle yet laced with an unassailable certainty. I used to blame myself for worrying too much. I would spend hours by Stephanie's bedside, holding her tiny hand, praying for her pain to pass quickly, all while unaware of who was truly causing it. When the doctor, his eyes filled with caution, pulled me into the hallway and quietly handed me a folded piece of paper, my heart clenched. I opened it, just a few scrawled lines, but each word stabbed into my heart like a knife. "We need to test for intentional poisoning. Be careful. It could be someone in your household." I stood frozen, unable to breathe, unable to believe. My husband? The man I had trusted for 15 years, with whom I had shared every joy and sorrow, built a home, and watched Stephanie grow? No, I shook my head, trying to banish the thought. But the doctor's grave expression, the patient way he waited for my reaction, told me this was no mistake. No cruel prank. And like a film rewinding in my mind, the small details I had once ignored came flooding back. The times Brad was overly eager to give Stephanie medicine before a doctor's prescription. The evenings I caught him muttering half-joking, half-threatening remarks about how children need to be controlled from a young age. The times Stephanie, in a feverish delirium, begged, "Please, don't make me take it anymore." I could no longer deny the truth for even a second. A cold, gaping abyss opened beneath my feet. And I knew I had to step into that darkness if I wanted to save my daughter before it was too late. From the outside, anyone would have thought my family was perfect. A scholarly husband, a beautiful daughter, a tidy house with a blooming flower garden out front. I, Deborah, had devoted most of my life to nurturing that home, from warm family dinners to bedtime story sessions with Stephanie. I believed I was living in a safe world, protected by those I loved most. Brad, my husband, always played the role of the model father in public. He knew how to flash timely smiles, lean in to listen when needed, and never forgot to carry a small bottle of medicine whenever Stephanie seemed tired or a bit naughty, as he'd say. I used to be touched by how carefully he gave her those tiny white pills, whispering, "Come on, it's just to make you feel better." But over time, strange incidents piled up that I couldn't explain. Stephanie, once a vibrant child, began showing odd symptoms. Unexplained red rashes on her skin, sudden collapses on the playground, moments of irritability or panic followed by exhaustion so deep she'd fall into a lifeless sleep. Each time, Brad had a ready explanation: pollen allergies, school stress, or simply she's growing. I told myself 100 times I was overreacting, that a father who loved his daughter so much could never harm her. But doubts began to smolder in my heart like cold drafts slipping through a cracked door. Why was Brad always the first to give her medicine, even before a doctor's diagnosis? Why did Stephanie's episodes always flare up after evenings alone with her father? And then, when that note was placed in my hand at the hospital, a warning from an experienced doctor who had seen a similar horrific case, everything in me shattered. I remember clutching the paper so tightly my fingers went numb, a chilling sensation crawling up my spine. "It's possible your husband is causing this." A single sentence, but it crushed my heart. From that moment, I no longer saw Brad through the eyes of a loving wife. Every touch of his hand on Stephanie's shoulder, every soothing word as he placed a tiny pill in her mouth, they replayed in my mind like a cruel performance. I knew I couldn't keep ignoring it. I knew, if I still loved my daughter, I had to do something I'd never dared consider before. I had to investigate. I had to uncover the truth. no matter how much that truth might tear my heart apart. After that night in the hospital, I could no longer sleep soundly. Each time I closed my eyes, I saw Stephanie's pale face, her eyes filled with a fear she couldn't even name. I knew I couldn't wait another second. I had to find the truth, even if it meant digging into the life I had once trusted. I started in Brad's office, a place he called his little secret vault, off limits to Stephanie and me. He was away on a short business trip. My heart pounded as I turned the key in the lock. The door swung open, and I stepped into the private world my husband had hidden for years. I searched every drawer, every file, my hands trembling with dread of what I might find. And then, I saw it, a worn, unlabeled folder tucked deep in the bottom of a cabinet. When I opened it, I froze. Inside was a medical record of a young girl, not Stephanie, who had died years earlier. Her name was unfamiliar, but the described symptoms sent chills down my spine. Unexplained rashes, sudden fainting, erratic mood swings. All eerily identical to what Stephanie was experiencing. I kept digging, and each discovery stabbed deeper into my heart. A small, unlabeled bottle of medicine, no instructions, just a scrap of paper attached with scrawled words. Keep Stephanie under control. I sank into a chair, my hands shaking so badly I nearly dropped the bottle. My mind reeled, trying to deny it, trying to rationalize that there must be a mistake. But then, at the bottom of the drawer, I found receipts for purchasing drugs, banned substances used only for neurological control, suppressing the central nervous system. I pieced together every memory. Every time Brad said, "Come on, take your medicine. Daddy knows what's best for you." Every grimace Stephanie made before swallowing a pill, every furtive glance when I asked, "How do you feel, sweetheart?" Every night, I overheard Brad whispering on the phone, "Kids need discipline. Deborah's too soft. If we don't train her early, she'll turn out spoiled." It was all laid bare before me, clear as daylight. Brad wasn't treating her illness. He was controlling her. And possibly, he had controlled other children before her. A wave of utter horror surged through me, but with it came an unprecedented resolve. I had to save Stephanie. I had to save her immediately, before it was too late. I sat in the pitch-dark bedroom, the hum of the air conditioner and Stephanie's faint breathing the only sounds in the night. I had read the doctor's note at least 100 times, as if hoping I'd misread it. But each time my eyes scanned those words, my heart plummeted deeper into an abyss. High likelihood, someone close is harming the child. Perhaps, deep in my subconscious, I had sensed something was wrong for a long time. But I had lied to myself, convinced myself Brad was a devoted father. I had ignored the times he handed Stephanie pills without explanation. I had overlooked his cold glances whenever she was playful, whenever she expressed her innocent emotions. I couldn't wait another second. I lifted Stephanie from her bed, her body limp in my arms like a doll drained of life. I grabbed only the essentials, a wallet, medical records, and a USB with photos I'd secretly taken of the medicine bottles. Nothing else. No trace left behind. I stepped out of the house like a shadow, my legs trembling, but each step fueled by growing determination. We raced to the police station in the biting cold of a winter night. In the dim light of the reception area, I emptied my bag, spreading all the evidence before the duty officer, a burly man whose eyes flickered with caution as he saw the frail child in my arms. I told him everything. No holding back, no embellishing. I described the strange rashes, the time Stephanie collapsed right after taking Brad's medicine. I recounted the emotionless explanations Brad used like a shield to cover his actions. The officer listened quietly, occasionally jotting notes. When I finished, he looked at me for a long moment, then said softly, "We believe you, and we'll act immediately." That same night, a task force was dispatched to my home. When Brad walked into the living room, cold handcuffs were waiting. I didn't witness it, but when the officer recounted it, I could picture it all. Brad standing tall, his face expressionless, a faint, cold smile curling his lips. He said only one thing. "She'll thank me later. I was just doing what's best for her." Chilling. Disgusting. But powerless. Because in Brad's world, control and coercion were love. The evidence was overwhelming. Illegal drug purchase receipts. Handwritten notes with cold instructions. Maintain dosage. Child must not exceed boundaries. No further accusations were needed. Brad was arrested on charges of child poisoning, intentional abuse, and deliberate long-term neurological harm. And I held Stephanie tightly, silent tears falling onto her soft hair. Not from sorrow, but from a profound relief too deep to name. I had saved my daughter. And I had saved myself from the sweet but deadly trap I had lived in for years. That night, for the first time in ages, Stephanie and I slept peacefully in a truly safe place. The trial took place on a blisteringly sunny day. I remember sitting there, my hands clenched so tightly they turned white as the prosecutor presented the evidence. The banned drugs, Brad's chilling handwritten notes, and the doctor's testimony, the one who had the courage to sound the alarm that saved Stephanie. Brad sat just a few meters away. The same face, the same smug half smile as the day he was arrested. But this time, his gaze held no power over me. I had seen through him, no longer the refined, intellectual husband I once loved, but a sick man, a warped soul who convinced himself control was love. The judge delivered the verdict. Life imprisonment, no possibility of parole. I didn't cry. Not because I felt nothing, but because the pain had been replaced by pure relief. Justice, something I once thought existed only in books, had finally stood by my daughter and me. After the trial, I carried Stephanie out of the courthouse, amid the bustling crowd. She looked up at me with wide, clear, innocent eyes, as if untouched by the darkness we had just escaped. We moved to a small coastal town where no one knew our past. I rented a quaint house with a white picket fence and a garden bursting with yellow daisies. Each morning, I make Stephanie a cup of warm milk, send her off to school with a smile, a luxury I could barely imagine during the years of living in fear. Stephanie is recovering. No more sudden fainting spells, no more vague panic attacks. Instead, she's joined an art class, plays ball with friends, and chatters excitedly each evening about her day at school. Once, while I was washing dishes, Stephanie hugged me from behind and whispered, "Mom, you're my hero." I froze, tears streaming down my cheeks. No medals, no accolades, just those words made every difficult choice I'd made worthwhile. And I realized a deeper truth. I didn't just save my daughter. I saved myself from a life of manipulation, where love was twisted into chains. Today, I'm no longer the woman trembling under angry glares. I am Deborah, a mother, a warrior, a woman true to herself. If anyone asks me the greatest lesson from this journey, I'll answer without hesitation. No one has the right to call harm love. And you always have the right to step out of the darkness to protect the light in your life, even if you must walk alone. What would you do if the person you loved most was harming your family? Do you believe in a mother's intuition, like Deborah's? Like, comment, subscribe to share powerful, cautionary stories like Deborah's.